Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. Now, in today's video this morning, we are going to talk about some of the recent news. You may have seen my other video, which was talking about the Dark Dimension 8 lanes, and no surprise that I did land most of those darts. Now, I did intentionally actually miss the final dart there on Cosmic. I just went with the same thing of Cosmic City and Villain just to throw people off. But hey, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what I think that you should be doing. Now, I know what people are going to say is that it's early to talk about Dark Dimension 8, and it kind of is. However, I think for those of us who are still making our way through Dark Dimension 7, that kind of thinking about it in the back of your mind and potentially double or even triple dipping in some cases, we'll talk about the triple part, is quite important to keep in mind. We don't have the purple ISO yet, but understanding what characters you do want to take up to Dark Dimension 7 and how many of those will still work in Dark Dimension 8, I think is really important. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So if you're ready to go, let's boil this down. Okay, so this blog came out last night. Oh, by the way, I forgot to bring it over here. I went to Deadpool. I saw the movie. It was great, by the way. No spoilers, of course. And I picked up the Deadpool bucket head. The popcorn bucket head thing cost me 30 Canadian dollars. I don't know if it was really worth it, but I thought it was cool. I was going to show it off in the video. Maybe I'll show it on my next video. So that was fun. I hope everyone gets a chance to see Deadpool the movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, because it was really, really good. And hopefully a redemption arc for the MCU. But anyways, they kind of officialized, is that even a word? Officially announced Purple ISO that we're going to get basically levels 1 through 3 available to upgrade with 4 and 5 in the future. Basically, Dark Dimension 8 is going to require you to have Purple ISO level 3. Now, apparently, there was a statement made by player experience manager Stark who said that there was no gear tier requirement. So we'll keep that, in the back of our minds in case things are, where's my button? Subject to change. I don't know if there is one down at the bottom of this blog. I'm not really going to go through the stats of all the purple stuff, that is here, honestly. Is level 85 to equip, actually. But otherwise, we're not going to really go over this too much. You can read this at your own time if you want for the upgrades that are to each of the level ups, right? But the main thing is what I talked about in one of my previous videos was that Fortifier level 3 is going to clear 2 vulnerables on self, and then Healer level 3 is going to clear 1 vulnerable on all allies and self when used an ultimate ability. So I discussed that previously on my Saturday video, I'm pretty sure. So there we go. And the rest of it's kind of just like more bonus stuff on top of what they already do. Now, they did say here at launch, Purple ISO is only going to come exclusively from event milestones and an event store. That event store is on Monday. So that's going to be part of the radioactive prep event that's on Monday. You may have heard me talk about that in my other video. The data mines are officially on my Discord server, which is going to be a campaign energy spending event and Cosmic Crucible with bonus points to having Captain Britain. No surprise there. They're monetizing Captain Britain, I guess, for bonus points, and it's going to be a leaderboard as well. And that leaderboard is going to contain extra Purple ISO related stuff. So keep that in mind. You'll get the details, or we'll see the details of the tables and the math charts and stuff like that on the blog post later on today. And also, I'm going to have of course, my event video on Sunday like I normally would. So they just clarify and confirm that yes, Odin is Dark Dimension 8. And that's going to be the next character. Actually, it says down here, I'm going to zoom in one. It says right here, we did mention earlier this year in our Age of X blog that Professor X would be Dark Dimension. However, we made a small pivot to accommodate. What that means to me, and that's what it tells me, is that they need more money. They need your cash dollar from the whales and the krakens because I guess they don't have enough of it. Maybe they need it to support their development on Battle World or something like that because having basically one Dark Dimension every 6 months is a bit of an uptick, I guess, from what it used to be about 9 months or so, because we had Mephisto in April. Like, I don't even know when it launched. Like, it's not been that long. I'd have to go back and check my spreadsheet on that one. But it hasn't been that long, right? There's like less than 1,000 people, I think, with Mephisto at this point. So anyways, yes, confirmation of the traits: city villain, city hero, global villain, and cosmic or legendary. So you could use, it's both, right? Like you use cosmic or legendary. There's no restrictions on mythic characters, And there is restrictions on legendary. So these 4 sections for city and global, you cannot use legendary characters. Now this is going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass for city villain because of Sinister 6. So you won't be able to use Green Goblin Classic, and you won't be able to use Doc Ock. The rest of it, I don't think is really that big of a deal. You won't be able to use Old Man Logan in the Global Hero section, but you will be able to use him down here. So I've made a little bit of a tier list of characters that are usable in Dark Dimension 8. At this point in time, they're going to be the best characters that I think are out right now. Characters that are also usable in Dark Dimension 7 as well. But also, thirdly, it's going to be raid characters, because some of them are going to be raid characters because we know that the Orcus raids. Oh, this is really hard for me to say. I'm actually trying really hard because a lot of people didn't like the way that I said it. It actually takes a lot of effort for me. But anyways, that we know that the next raids are going to eventually require purple ISO, right? Like maybe not in the start. I think maybe at the start it could be like blue 5. That's probably what it's going to be. But the higher difficulties, I think, probably will require purple ISO. So when I'm thinking about what characters that I want to take to Dark Dimension 8, it's going to be characters that I kind of want to double or triple dip, on Dark Dimension 7, and also for raids. I've always said that raids are very important characters to build up, unless they're kind of going outdated, right? Which would be like the Bifrost and the Pegasus, which I don't think is safe at this point in time. But the other ones are characters that we're still going to be using for 6+ months more. And I think something that we are going to see that next raid in the not so distant future. Honestly, I would, at this point in time, as far as a timeline goes, I would wager that we would be seeing the raids by the end of August, early September. That's my guess, honestly. And then with Dark Dimension 8, with the Karen patch, which would be like end of September, somewhere towards like the end of October, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what my expectations are there. And I'll say it out right now, is that I think that the next legendary character, my guess is going to be Dracula. That's kind of my current bet. And the reason why is because we had data mine asset files of the vampire minions, and I don't see Karen raising vampires, and Dracula makes the most sense in terms of being able to do that. But that's just me. We'll find out, right? And we'll see how many of these Boilon Oracle darts that I land. This one actually is just pure speculation. I don't know about Dracula, but it does make sense to me. So what I'm going to be doing... Oh, they actually clarify here. Apocalypse, Doom, and Ultron can be used in Global Villain. Mephisto, Super Skrull, Dormammu, Ultimus, and Kestrel can be used. They're basically just covering their bases on mythic characters that, yes, they will be usable in that. So that is part of my graphic, which I want to show you now. And a lot of this is not necessarily in any particular order. They largely are, but I wanted to show what I thought was the best characters, characters that you could consider for raids that we're using right now, and other related Dark Dimension 7 picks. Because a lot of these characters are characters that we would be considering for Dark Dimension 7 anyways. Now, City Villain is the first section. There is no unrestricted section. And this is going to be the roughest section because, like I said, you're not going to be able to use Doc Ock or Green Goblin Classic. And so you're basically looking at, I'm going to call it the Sinister 5, right? It's the leftovers. Because usually there's like the 7 good characters. And so now we have the 5, the rest of them, which is Vulture and Mysterio from the old team, who still had really great reworks. And then the other 3 remaining members of the Superior 6, Lizard, Craven, and Spider Slayer. Now, we also do have the Hive Mind 3 because, Void Knight and Gwenom are heroes, and they're also in different sections as well. So this would make the most sense. So if you were to take Hive Mind 3, keep in mind you do not need Gear Tier 19, apparently. Subject to change, right? Like, was that even there at the bottom? Actually, it wasn't even there at the end of the bottom of the blog. So this is not subject to change, right? So if they change this, then they're liars. But I'm going to put this up anyways because, that's probably going to happen. So they don't say Gear 19. We'll see what ends up happening. Regardless, Hive Mind are not characters that I took to Gear Tier 19. I did largely Spider Society. I'm at 4 Spider Society and Vulture, actually, in fact. But so even if we don't need Gear Tier 19, it probably would help to have some Gear Tier 19 characters so you're not struggling, I would imagine. But these still represent the best characters. And, if you're endgame and kind of competitive, you probably have the Superior 6 or Sinister 6 at 95 plus anyways, G18, that's reasonable. So I think that's probably what you're looking at, is at a bare minimum. You're looking at like level 100, G18, purple ISO 3, right? Like, I don't think that the difference between G18 and G19 would be a huge detriment, especially if you have some of these characters at, 7 yellow, 7 red, or diamonds, for example. I think that should be sufficient enough at that point. So, city villains there. Really don't think at this point in time, anyways, there's like anything else to really choose from. City Heroes is an obvious no-brainer. Like, there's no contest at all. Like, Spider Society, hands down, especially since technically you don't need to G19 them, but you probably want to consider this anyways because these are the best characters, in my opinion, for Dark Dimension 7. Is that it's almost like an auto fest. Like, it's so easy. I one-shot all a city with 4 Spider Society characters minus Pav. I did not have Pav, but I had the other 4 with Vulture, and it was a one-shot. Actually, Vulture died, and it was still a one-shot with the 4 of them. It was just so easy. Now, for Global Villain, however, this one's pretty obvious. And what's interesting about these choices here, I think, is that when you're doing your global section in Dark Dimension 7, there's 2 trains of thoughts, in my opinion. You're either going with the hero extreme X-Men side of things, or you're going with the villain side of things with Cabal. That's typically where it sits right now. And those are the recommendations, right? You're either taking Cabal or you're taking Extreme X-Men with, some hero characters and some villain characters. Now, these represent the best characters in the global villain section. So obviously the Cabal 3 with Apocalypse makes sense, especially since he's mythic and you do need to take him. I mean, yes, you don't need to take him, but you probably will take him to Dark Dimension 7. And then we have Ares coming out in the near future, which is actually on Monday. So, I mean, you're going to start unlocking and building up Ares. And I think this probably makes the most sense. And, Dark Dimension 8 isn't going to be for like another 2 months when it starts, right? So by the time you get in there, I think this is still going to be a solid pick, though. I did add Dawkin in there just for people who are crazy into Mercs for Money, which is a possible other global villain pick. But these would be my first 5 here, would be these characters here. In terms of what characters might be added in the near future, I mean, I'm not going to say. This is just a list that I'll update regularly, like as needed. But this is as it sits right now, in my opinion. A global hero, again, Extreme X-Men 4, not 5. I don't really think the Cyclops is worth being on this list personally. And even in existing raids right now, he's pretty much like gotten replaced by Old Man Logan, so who is on the list further down. Black Knight is still a viable 5th for that hero selection. And I think Hank Pym, especially by the time that Dark Dimension 8 comes out, Hank Pym very well could be farmable at that point. And so I think that he's still a very solid character as far as his greater synergy, right? Like, he's got a lot of hero synergy in his kit. And so I think that this could have a lot of potential value. And he's even in my other Dark Dimension 7 list as well, if you want to go this hero road for your DD7 global picks. So the fact that basically between these 20 characters, technically you're only using 10 of these. Actually, that's not true. You could use 10 plus like Apocalypse in your Dark Dimension 7, right? So 5 city, 5 global, and Apocalypse is in the mythic section. So some of these do double in other areas. And so, you're not, you basically, when you do clear Dark Dimension 7, not all of them are going to be compatible. It's not going to be a direct 25 and 25 for both of them. That's what I was trying to say. Anyways, and then finally, we have the Cosmic Lego Legendary section. And this one's quite interesting because a lot of the mythic characters are cosmic, right? A lot of the good ones. We have Mephisto, and the funny thing is that depending on the gain rate of purple ISO, or if you're a heavy spender, it might actually be easier to get to Odin, because I think the amount of spending needed to get 25 purple ISO characters would probably be less, I think, than all of the amount of red gear that you would have to buy in order to get through Dark Dimension 7. So I would not be surprised if people actually get Odin before Mephisto. That being said, I think these represent some of your best picks that will be here now and also upcoming, which would be Mephisto, which would be Super Skrull in no particular order, but there are some pretty good choices here. Old Man Logan, obviously from the legendary section. I don't actually believe that there is many other good choices right now in the legendary section that aren't stat crept or are worth putting on your purple ISO, as no current legendaries are in raids. So, or yeah, I think that's true, actually. In fact, other than Old Man Logan, which you're using in mutant section, but the Mystic Raid team, if Dracula is the Mystic Raid team, I mean, that could be a future pick as well around that time if you want to wait until then or a little bit after that. Ultimus, also going to be part of the new Annihilators team and a Cosmic pick as well. I put Vol and Kestrel in here, but I don't know if they'll fit in the 5 that I would like to do. Same with Void Knight. Like, these are basically raid considerations for what I talked about for, future requirements of possibly needing purple ISO 3 or whatever the lock is for the next raid. And then finally, we have Gore, Gladiator, and Thanos Endgame because obviously Annihilators, right? And I think if you're thinking within the greater context of other game modes, Annihilators are arena meta. You're going to be using like the 3 Annihilators with like Mephisto and another plug and play. Maybe that's Ultimus. Maybe it's somebody else. You know, who knows? But those 3 would make sense to want to power up even higher, whether that's G19, whether that's Purple ISO 3, you know, or both, right? So I think that's pretty solid. Also, Thanos Endgame's exposed mechanic is pretty insane. So if I had the choice of these characters, I probably would be going with the 3 Annihilators with Mephisto and Old Man Logan. Those would be my 5 picks if I were to lock in with any of these characters. The rest of it, to be honest, like I think that Skrull is getting its way out of the arena meta, especially once you have Mephisto in hand and the Annihilators come out within the next 2 months. I think that's what we're probably looking at. But there is obviously some flexibility and some options here, and it's the last section, so it's not that big of a deal. And Dark Dimension 8 won't be coming around for some time. But I just wanted to kind of put this into your guys' head so that you can start thinking about it. But also when it comes to what you're upgrading for G19 for Dark Dimension 7, I may do a separate video just on DD7, but I feel like this was the best way to kind of like share a little bit of both, if that makes sense, of what characters I'm thinking about, because a lot of these do overlap with Dark Dimension 7 choices as well. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And of course, until the blog later on today, I did want to get this out a little bit early. So until next time, everybody stay safe and healthy. And maybe you'll hear Loki shaking in the next video. Boilon, signing out.